That's all we got for our boxing events. Now, let's talk about what's on deck here that's coming up soon that I think you should be intrigued by. It's been a long time, but apparently we're finally here. Errol Spence, the truth, the current unified, he's unified. He's got the WBC, he's got the WBA, and he's got the IBF titles. Finally fighting, apparently, Terrence Bud Crawford, who has the WBO, for unifying the division, the welterweight division, at 147. This is a long time coming, and I want to give you some background in case you weren't following it or you stopped following it because people were playing games. So Errol Spence, the first title that he ever got was the IBF. The story behind this is that the IBF, Sean Porter had it. Sean Porter lost it when Kell Brook took it on U.S. shore. So he came over, fought Porter, took the belt from Porter, went back overseas. Errol Spence gets the shot. He goes over to Kell Brook's hometown, beats Kell Brook and stops him on his own turf. And I remember the commercial where it was saying, how are you going to deal with all these cheering fans and all this from Kell Brook? Didn't seem to deter Spence. He was getting outboxed at front, but later he turned it up and stopped Kell Brook. People made excuses like on NSB and others because Brook was fresh off of fighting Golovkin, which was an ill-advised decision because the eye that Golovkin shattered was not the same eye that Spence shattered. Spence shattered the other one. So then Spence gets the IBF, brings it back to the U.S. after Spence lost it domestically. Fast forward then, and then Spence gets the title shot to fight Sean Porter for the WBC title. Sean Porter fought as hard as hell. He fought as hard as hell. It wasn't enough. Spence was able to get a drop, very late game. He was able to knock down Sean Porter. If Spence had not knocked down Sean Porter, we don't know how that fight would have ended up, I'm being honest, because Porter gave everything the hell he had in that one. Spence takes the WBC. Story of that one, comedy. In the post-fight, he's like, why you wearing that green jacket? Give me that green jacket, take your belt, give it over here, give it over here. So then now he's got two belts, IBF, WBC. Chatter around unifying with Terrence Crawford next. Terrence Crawford does multiple interviews talking about, well, I don't need the Spence fight and I don't need to fight him. And I'm number one pound for pound because I beat Jeff Horn and I beat the man that beat the man. He's doing everything he can not to make the fight happen, basically, is what's happening with Crawford. Separately then, Manny Pacquiao beats Keith Once Upon a Time Thurman, takes the WBA title. So now Manny's holding this title. Rumors about Spence and Manny unifying to get the WBA. I actually did a video about that on YouTube when it was being chatted around. Spence gets injured. Manny starts chasing Crying Garcia for a fight nobody believed was going to really happen. The WBA is like, screw you, we're going to strip you because you're trying too hard to make a fight we don't want. So they strip him of the WBA title, which elevated Yordenis Ugas. Yordenis Ugas was the regular WBA champion, and then he got elevated to super after Manny got stripped. So now Yordenis Ugas is the full WBA champion. Spence and Ugas make a deal because they're both under Al Heyman. Spence goes in there. Ugas was tagging Spence. Ugas was clearly winning rounds. And then Spence turns it up late, which he always does. He turns it up late, starts beating the body like nobody had ever seen, just broke him down and forces a stoppage. First time Ugas had ever been stopped, Spence takes the WBA. So now Spence has WBC, IBF, WBA titles. Tries again to make a fight with Terrence Bud Crawford. Rumors are they're getting close. All of a sudden, Crawford walks away from negotiations, announces he's going to fight David Avanesian out of nowhere, which means he was negotiating bad faith behind the scenes and wasn't serious about making the Errol fight. Spence comes out on Twitter and said, now y'all see the holdup was. Crawford's talking about, I told him I need to fight and I need to do the fight. And I agreed to all their terms and all this, which wasn't true. Crawford goes to BLK Prime, basically robs these people of $10 million allegedly, fights David Avanesian. Story of the fight, Crawford's gloves start falling apart. Most fighters come out and they talk about, okay, that means the gloves were used because the way that fell apart, there's no way that these were new gloves and there's no way they were checked. The glove manufacturer comes out defending Crawford saying, no, it's a manufacturing glitch. Fighters are like, no, these were used gloves. There's no way. The fight's not stopped. So then Crawford gets a stoppage, knockout of Avanesian with these sketchy falling apart gloves, basically a bare knuckle knockout. Now, Spence has not taken a fight. He's basically waiting on Crawford, purposely waiting on Crawford. And what I said to people is, I want you to look at this. I want you to analyze the two sides. In one situation, a guy walked away from negotiations to go fight a soft touch with falling apart sketchy gloves. Meanwhile, Spence said, Crawford is the one I want, and I'm not going to take a soft touch. I want to fight Terrence Crawford. People to this day, are constantly blaming Errol Spence, saying he's ducking Crawford, but that doesn't make any sense. One guy walked away from negotiations, and this is the guy who was the B side, who needed to accept all terms from the A side to make the fight happen, and we knew that he could. The other thing is, Crawford could have just simply joined Al Heyman for a short deal, which is what Manny did. It's what Canelo did. It's what Mikey did. It's what Josecito did. Like, so many fighters have done that. Join Al Heyman, 1 or 2 fight deal, get what you want, get out and go elsewhere and do whatever you want to do. Crawford refused to do that. He wanted to promote himself, which is why it fell apart. Well, now apparently they announced, okay, we got a deal done. Both Spence and Crawford announced it on social media. They went on First Take talking about the fight, but apparently Crawford this time agreed to a 2-fight deal with PBC. And I come back and say, why the hell didn't you do that the first effing time? I almost cussed, to avoid this nonsense and delaying the fight. And I can only think he was trying to age Spence out, or wait for him to get a little bit older, a little bit on the decline, go and rob a bank real quick, and then come back and see if Spence is on the decline. But the other thing is, it creates excuses, because Crawford is now, I believe, 2 years older than Errol Spence. He's 35. He was getting tagged at will by David Avanesian. He was getting tagged at will by Sean Porter. He was getting tagged at will by Kell Brook. He was getting jabbed to hell by Amir Khan. It's like, and then, Kavaliauskas 2-piece wobbled and dropped him. He's not looked stellar in the 147 fights he's been in, minus Jeff Horn. So then it's like, you're looking terrible every fight out, dude. And so now if Spence goes in there and completely washes him, there's just gonna be excuses. Oh, Spence aged him out, or this and that and the other. Instead of, if he had just simply accepted the fight back then and say, you know what, Al Heyman, let's just make a 2-fight deal and get this thing done because I want to fight this dude. He goes and fights this soft touch that he knows he's gonna get criticism for. And I'm thinking, why are you taking so long to avoid this unless you just simply don't want to fight this dude? And you're now looking to cash out because you're older and you realize you're getting tagged at will in every damn fight. Don't get me wrong, Spence does get hit. Everybody he's gone against has hit him, but the difference with Spence, he walks through those shots. He walks through and he'll walk you down and frequently come forward. Like, he doesn't really fight on the back foot. Early rounds, he tests it and he'll hit you and he'll touch you and he'll touch you. And then he waits for you to step up. Well, Crawford is a counterpuncher by nature. He doesn't go after you unless he sees you're in trouble. So now you got Spence. He's going to touch you and touch you and touch you, just like Porter touched him and touched him and touched him. Bomac's going to be screaming at him in the corner to stay calm, because Crawford's eventually going to make a mistake and get tagged on the chin, which I expect to happen. If Crawford's able to land on Spence, which I think he will, Spence is just going to start walking him down with brutal body work. And now we're going to see the thing turn up. And again, if Spence blows him out, we're going to hear excuses about his age, and it's all Crawford's fault because all he had to do was sign the damn deal way back years ago. It's Maypac all over again. So for me, and I'll put it on record, I firmly believe, setting aside the excuses I know are going to come, I firmly believe Errol Spence beats this man. I think Spence is going to get hit. I'm pretty sure Spence is going to get dropped at least one time. Pretty darn sure. Crawford seems to be able to drop guys with shots you can't see. However, his performance against Avanesian gets me thinking, okay, maybe he's enough decline where Spence is just going to be able to deal with him with veritable ease. That's possible. Most people thought Crawford's small. I don't think that's going to play into factor. I think what's going to play into factor is what kind of strategy Crawford employs against a guy, because guarantee you, Derek James ain't going to throw no towels like, Kenny Porter did. So, Spence is going to be there all night long. He's going to be there all night long because I don't see Spence quitting. I don't. I think Spence is going to be there all night long, and we're going to really test these guys. But I firmly believe in my heart of hearts that Spence is the better boxer. I think Crawford might be the better fighter. I think Spence is the better boxer. And to me, when you have a really, really good boxer versus a really, really good fighter, it tends to lean towards the boxer depending on the strategy of the fighter. If the fighter can't employ the right strategy to deal with the boxer, I know people talk about Crawford can adapt and switch hit and all that stuff. I don't know that it's going to do much good against Errol Spence because, again, if he sees that it's time to turn it up, he just starts walking you down, hitting you with body stuff, or hits you on the chin mid-exchange. And I think it's going to be brutal, especially when he was able to drop Shawn Porter. Because remember, it was difficult to drop Shawn Porter. Very few people could drop Shawn Porter. Broner was the first to do it. That was a shot Porter didn't see. Crawford was eventually able to drop Shawn Porter when Shawn Porter lost his composure. Spence was able to drop Shawn Porter mid-throw, but it's shots you don't see coming that drop Shawn Porter. So in this Crawford-Spence situation, I think Spence might get dropped. I truly do, because he might catch a shot he doesn't see. But Spence was eating bombs off Shawn Porter. He was eating bombs off Dennis Ugas, and with the exception of his stupidity with the mouthpiece, Spence was never in any real trouble with the Ugas. It's just that Ugas was landing. Crawford will land. I can almost assure you he'll land. Question is, will Spence just walk through the punches? Because if Spence walks through Crawford's punches, Crawford has no chance here. I'm not dismissing Terrence Crawford. I'm saying that I rate Spence higher as a boxer. That's my point. That's my call. Let's see if the fight goes down. It's in July, I heard. If the fight goes down, let's see how it turns out, and let's see who really gets it right. And let's see who can finally unify the division after so many years of not having a unified champion.